Hello, everyone. I'm Hector Del Castillo, and I am organizer of ProductCamp DC and also founder of Bold PM. And I want to welcome all of you to today's session, ProductCamp session. And Steve Johnson is today's speaker. And the topic for today is innovating your planning process. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and also have Steve Johnson join us. And by the way, Steve Johnson is also organizer of ProductCamp DC, so we work together in managing this particular event, and he'll be discussing today's topic. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Let me take over control here. I laughed at what JP said earlier. People love any topic that has the word innovate in it. I was working with, I don't know if you know the name, one of my friends is a guy named David Meerman Scott, and he wrote a book called The New Rules of Marketing. And he's done super well with it. It's a fabulous book. But he was meeting with a bunch of speakers, and they were talking about billing. Apparently, every time professional speakers get together, the first thing they do is talk about how much are you billing, and they finally decided that if you put the word innovate in the title of your speech, you can bill 5,000 more for the speech, which I think is hysterical. But anyway, so let's start with a little bit about me. I have been in product management now for 25 years. I spent some time working here in the DC area. I used to work in the shopping bag building in Tycon 1, I think it was, right underneath the Tower Club. So that was exciting. Anyway, I spent 15 years with pragmatic marketing, and I've spent the last 10 years consulting with companies, primarily around the idea of product ops, figuring out what your process needs to be. And one of the tools I'll share with you tonight is one of the things that I consult on. I'm a member of a company called Product Growth Leaders, which is a group of consultants who help teams implement the best practices of product management. And we're also a member of the Quartz Open initiative, which I'll be sharing with you today. But let me start with why in the world I have this picture of an elephant. Many of you may know the story about the elephant with the chain around its leg, or what's called the baby elephant principle. Basically, it's the idea that an elephant that's tied to its stake as it's growing up will think it can't move even when it can. As a baby, he's like, well, I can't seem to go anywhere because I've got this chain around my leg. As an adult, it's like, I've learned I can't go anywhere because I have this chain around my leg. And there's a really funny YouTube video of an elephant going over and picking up the stake and walking over to that tree and putting the stake back in the ground and then eating all the leaves on the tree, or whatever it is elephants eat. But I think it's a wonderful metaphor for process, that we developed this process 15 years ago. And yet, that was before Agile, that was before SaaS, that was before we changed our business model. Do the processes of the past hold us back? I mean, are they chains that prevent us from moving forward? And fundamentally, if your process isn't achieving its desired outcomes, then it's time to change your process. And you may know the Professor Edwards Deming, who said, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, then you don't know what you're doing. And it is so funny when I talk to teams and just say, how do you do things here? And one person will say, oh, it's very straightforward. We do this, 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 this. And then somebody else will say, no, that's not what we do. We do that, 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 that. And even the people who are supposed to be following the process don't know what the process is. In fact, 47% of people surveyed last year in a product management survey, a CEO survey, indicated that process was the biggest challenge their company had. Process is a huge problem. And a similar survey also in 2020, top issues in product management: ad hoc lifecycle process, ill-defined product innovation process, inconsistent process for managing the product portfolio. And I think in the end, products get released through individual heroics. The product manager, the dev lead, maybe the project manager are doing everything they can to bypass all of the nonsense in their company, to force a company to release a product despite the company's best efforts to prevent it. So I was working for a software company in Reston, Virginia. It was a $1 billion software company. It drove me insane because you couldn't get anything done. At every step, you had to check with somebody. There were you had to walk down to the no department, all those people who are full-time employed to say no to everything, right? And I'd say, well, I need to talk to some customers. And the sales team would say, no, you can't do that. And I'd like to do a survey. And marketing said, no, you can't do that because, we do a survey once a year. And I talked to another department, legal, and they would say, oh, no, you can't do that. There were so many restrictions. And so I thought, well, hallelujah. So I got recruited into this startup, 40 people in this company. And I'm like, yes, hallelujah, I can finally get some work done. And a week later, I was pulling my hair out because there was no process. Anybody could do anything. Everybody was doing everything. And I got pulled into a meeting where a sales guy had called us all together and said, I don't like the company name and I want to brainstorm some alternatives. And I'm like, you know what? I'd be willing to do this if there was beer involved, but there's no way we're changing this company name. So why don't we just pretend we had this meeting and move on? So I see a lot of individual heroics responsible for getting products to leave the company. And yet some companies have so much process, you can't get anything done. Other companies, it's like anarchy. There's no process at all. But clearly we need some process. I mean, we need something more than a cocktail napkin. And ultimately, we need a way of going from idea to successful deployment in the market. And here's one of my personal pet peeves. Building products is not factory work. And it seems to me there are so many executives and every salesperson has no comprehension of how software is made or how products are manufactured. And they often like to use the manufacturing idea. It's just assembly line. Stories come by on the assembly line and you pick up a story and you code some stuff into whatever, and then you log that you completed it on the Jira ticket, and that's how software is made. And they often use a parallel of the car business. And what they miss is the 4 years of design work that preceded the manufacturing of a car. It's not like everybody's just got together and said, hey, dude, let's make a car. Great, let's grab some parts and slap them together. No, they designed this whole thing. They validated it in the market. They did those tests to see if it went through the air right and what kind of miles per gallon it had, and does it really crumple when you crash, and all of that stuff. And once the design was finalized, then they go to an assembly line. So building software and building cars is not assembly line work. Yeah, but we need something, right? And everything we've been focused on in recent years has been focused on the middle of this. I mean, we need a way of discovering new ideas. We need a way of describing and creating solutions. We need a way to deliver to the market. And almost everything I've participated in over the last decade is all about how to do a better job of describing and creating. We've got design thinking, we've got story mapping, we've got Scrum and Less and Scrum of Scrums, and then sort of an Agile method called SAFe, because it's got Agile in the middle of it, except it's unsafe at any speed. But it doesn't seem like anybody's looking beyond this manufacturing thing. But how do we discover what problems we want to solve? And I use the word discovery carefully here. As part of design thinking, we do a thing called customer discovery. And that is getting with a customer to drill down specifically on what features they need. But not many companies are really spending time figuring out what products should we build, what markets should we serve. It's not about what features do we build, it's about what products should we be building. And then so there's very little in the way of discovery. There's also very little in the way of delivery. It's like, okay, development says we are done, we have launched the product. Well, wait a minute. Was there a press release? Was there a website? Was there sales enablement? Did we train the support people? Are the implementation guys ready to go? Does the customer know this thing even exists? And with today's methods, we can build the wrong product faster than ever. If you have ever used an enterprise product, it seems to me that every enterprise product feels like this. It started with a simple blade. It's like, I have a knife, I have a blade, I can whittle things. And somebody went, it'd be cool if you added some pliers to this. And somebody else says, ooh, pliers, good idea. What if we added a USB stick to it? And before you know it, you've got 100 blades and this knife is completely unusable. Now, in fairness to the people who made this knife, this was a gag. This is not a Photoshop. This is a real photo of a real knife, but it was a gag. For their 100th anniversary, the Swiss Army people made a knife with every blade they had ever made. And the knife was like $1,200. And I said to my wife, we have got to get one of these. And she goes, what planet are you living on? There is no way we are spending $1,200 for a knife that you can't travel with. Good point. But so many products feel like we had this thing and then we just, added a bolt here and added a bolt there. And next thing you know, we've got Frankenstein. But we do need a process. I mean, Agile by itself is not a life cycle process. We need a way of going from idea to market, and simply having a formal process is itself a best practice. So a really interesting question to ask when you get back to the office or do a little survey through your Slack channel, how would you describe your planning process or your product process? And the most common answer you'll get is ad hoc or inconsistent. So what happens is somebody hires a PMO. Let's go get ourselves a project management office. And so we hire this project manager from some other company, and they come in and say, here's what we need. First, we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this. And at every step of the process, we'll have go, no goes, and we'll have all these artifacts and deliverables, and everybody will be involved. We'll get the salespeople in here, and we'll get the marketing people in here, and we'll get all these other people who know absolutely nothing about our business in here, and we'll get them to guide us. And we build this perfect system that doesn't work in real life. But, in fairness to waterfall, if you're familiar with that approach, there's nothing really wrong with what I'm showing here. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to say, do this, do this, do this, do this. The problem with it is that learning only occurs twice: before you begin and when you're done. And so in the old days, we would get together, we'd lay out an MRD and a PRD and an SRS and I don't know what else. And I'd have our idea, we'd build a document, we'd build the product, we'd build the launch plan, we'd put it into the market, and then we would learn from the market, you built the wrong thing. So then, a few years ago, Lean came into our lives. Lean startup said, no. What you should be doing is building, measuring, learning, build, measure, learn. Except there's a whole lot more to product management. There's a whole lot more to a product than simply building. And in a module I teach on product problem discovery, the least successful or the least effective way of getting product ideas is from the idea portal, which is the most prevalent way that we get ideas. So somebody sets up an idea portal in Salesforce or User Voice or somewhere, and we get all these incredible ideas, which routinely are not ideas for problems to be solved, but for features to be built. And so we say, fine, let's do that whole lean thing. We'll build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. But there's so much more to think about. So I prefer to think of it this way. We need to discover problems in the market, describe those problems to the people who need to create solutions, and then deliver the solutions to market. So that's discover, describe, deliver. And then in between those steps, we have to get commitment from our leadership that we actually want to do this thing and that we are willing to fund it with, actual people, not just, oh, in your spare time, could you also build this other thing? We need to describe the problems to our dev team so they can create solutions and then support that creation through ongoing feedback from the market and validation of the designs. And then ultimately, we deliver the product to market and we have programs to increase our connection to the market. So when thinking about your planning process, these are the phases we need to go through. And again, so many of the things that I see are focused entirely on create, not the other 5 parts. And they are, to me, the really exciting part of this is at the core is continuous learning. We don't want to do this, listen to the market, do a survey of the market, take that, let that go into a PRD, wait 18 months, and then get the thing to come out, and then we find out that we've solved the wrong problem. So this is what's called the Quartz Open framework. I was involved with a group of really smart people. We spent some time together, a number of us. We broke into special interest groups. We pulled in people from industry to articulate these phases and build some tools around them. And and certainly my passion was making sure that learning happened at every step of the way. For instance, one of the common things that we expect from product marketing managers is called win-loss analysis. As our sales team connects with the market, we can instrument that through win-loss analysis. And what we most often learn is not product problems. What we learn is sales enablement problems. Likewise, when we're creating the product, we have the need to validate, is this feature designed correctly? Well, we need to learn that. We take that to market and get feedback. So it's not that we learn periodically, as we learn continuously. And the other reality here is you may have products in different stages of this. In one of my jobs, I had 3 different products. One was in the discovery phase, one was in the create stage, one was in the market already, and we were connecting with the market. So I had to wear like 3 different hats because I had products in 3 different stages. The other thing that is helpful about this as you ponder redesigning your process is there are specialty methods like design thinking or story mapping that speak to one of these things. We also have like sales methods and launch methods and marketing methods, and they're atomic. They sit. We get to this place where we're needing to connect to the market, so we go off and spawn another process, or if you will, use another library if you want to be nerdy about it. So this is the Quartz Open framework. It's like a guiding principle for creating your own process. And you can learn more about it at the website, QuartzOpen.com. But here's the key. Oh, wait. Yeah. Here's the key. High growth organizations are twice as likely as low growth ones to have and use standard deliverables in their innovation and go-to-market process. So what I want to talk about next, after a pause here, is we'll talk next about what are some of the standard deliverables you see in the innovation process. But let me open it up. Let me pause here for a second and open it up to questions. Hector, do you have any questions that have come in? Or let me just throw it up.
I do not yet. I
Hmm?
don't see any in the chat, but I don't know if anybody wants to chime in via audio.
Okay, JP, you want to weigh in?
So Steve, yeah, actually, I find this really fascinating, this framework that you've put together here. And certainly as you were talking, I was thinking about all kinds of things that happened recently and how they fit into these different pieces of your diagram. I don't think I had enough time to actually formulate a particular question, but what I guess I could say is, some of the things that were resonating with me, like you were talking about that initial discovery portion there. So I guess one of the things that I've learned now that I've moved more into sales from product management is that, you learn a lot from your customers in every customer engagement you're in. And at my company, that's kind of one way that we source those ideas, right? So we're doing all these engagements, and then you start to see some patterns emerge, and you're like, if all these customers are asking for this particular thing, perhaps we should create some standardized version of it to roll it out to the market, and then also be able to, sell it and promote it more quickly and things like that. So, but absolutely, I think a lot of the topics you just covered definitely resonated and were right on the mark.
Cool. Good. Richard, did you have anything you wanted to add? I'm kind of putting people on the spot here.
I just put I muted myself by accident. I had to turn my camera off because it was slowing down the connection. But listening to your talk is what I typically see or challenges is when you talk about learning and the researching, and part of it is there's a lot of fire ready aim, particularly from certain levels of management where they want to get it out the door and, oh, this is good enough and let's keep it moving. And so I'm curious about how, and then there's the other side of it, which is paralysis analysis.
Right.
And so, I know that there's not going to be any perfect, formula going back to kind of the process statement, but I feel like I think that's where a lot of companies suffer is the management wants to get it out the door and ship it as quickly as possible. Whereas a lot of the people who are on the ground, the UX people or whomever, want to do more research, right? So where do you find, or how do you strike that balance? I think is a part of the process that I see having to be worked out.
Yeah. Well, that's a particularly difficult question for me because I've always felt like I don't really do a very good job of stakeholder management. I just want to go to the leadership people and say, guys, learn how to build software for God's sake, and I never say that because, of course, that would be the end of my employment. But I agree. On the one hand, you've got the leadership saying, I thought that when we got Agile, we could skip all that tedious planning and thinking and go straight to coding. And then you've got, on the other hand, you've got people saying, well, I want to do 6 months of research. And kind of related to that as well is the need for quality. And quality absolutely doesn't matter until it does. Everybody's like, go, 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 go. Oh, shoot. How could you have let this leave the building? So it's a terrible balance. I agree. But that's why I think learning needs to be as agile as everything else. Like, I've got a prototype that UX built for me. I'm going to show it to a customer, And one of my secret tricks, well, not so secret, but one of my secret tricks from my employers of the past, I've always had half a dozen customers that I can talk to without checking with anybody in the company. I don't have to go through sales. I don't have to go through legal. I don't have to go through marketing or customer success. I can just call the CIO of 2 or 3 companies whose names I won't say and say, I need somebody to validate this. Can you look at this prototype, or can you walk me through how you guys do security or whatever? And learning should be as agile as every other part of the business. And yet so often it's like, oh, wait, but you can't talk to a customer without permission, or you can't, well, do anything without permission. So as we look at process, think about, can we do this in a day or a half a day or an hour, or is our process slowing us down? And I remember years ago, we used to talk about how long a piece of paper would sit in somebody's end basket. And it seems like it's those days again. It's like I texted them, I Slacked them, I emailed them. I'm going to try and see if there's some other way I can connect this person. But it would be great if product management specifically had a way of reaching out to customers frequently without having to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. Tracy, did you have a point?
Yes. I was wondering, since less attention is paid to the discover and commit versus describe and create, and of course less attention on connect and deliver, what have you found to be some good processes to rediscover or revalidate for an existing product, to find how we need to refine the offering?
Well, I'm a huge believer in observation. And I'll say that is the one thing that product managers don't do nearly enough of. I don't know why it is. It seems like product managers and marketing people hate actual people. They don't want to actually talk to anybody. What they want to do is have them respond to a survey. Or can you get back to me through email? Or can you go to this landing page? And one of the things I actually love now is our acceptance of Zoom and similar platforms that we can just say, hey, I'd like to get on the phone with you and show you something, or I'd like to get on a Zoom with you and have you show me something. And if you're looking for ways to improve your product, having a customer walk you through their workflow is super eye-opening. It's just amazing what you'll see them do. And I was using an ERP system who I won't name because of what I'm going to say next. And I finally had to call tech support and say, I'm trying to log this invoice and it's not going through. And they said, all right, well, could you share your screen? And I'm like, sure. So I'm sharing my screen. She goes, oh yeah, skip that. Yeah, we don't use any of that shit. Skip that. And we finally, we had like 50 fields. We went all the way down to field 51. And she's like, all right, put the invoice number there. And then in where it says description, put the invoice number there too. I don't know why. That's just the way we do it. And then over here, put the invoice amount. And so we had like 53 fields, 49 we skipped, and 1 we used incorrectly. And 1 had the invoice number and 1 had the amount. And, by the end of it, I was just laughing myself silly. And I wonder if the product manager has ever walked through somebody with this. And, surely the answer is no. So discovery learning happens all the time. I mean, if a product manager would spend time with customer support, they would hear customer support saying, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm getting another call on this thing. We spend time with sales and we hear sales doing the little dance to kind of work around this problem that we don't solve, that every customer keeps saying, I need this capability. Or just using it. Another quick one. My daughter was dating a product marketing guy who did not know how to use his product. and it was a consumer product. I mean, he should have known, not only should he have known how to use the product, he should have been actively using it. And she's like, in the lower right-hand corner, that click there, he was just kind of walking him through something. And he went, oh yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I never use our product. She broke it off with him because she couldn't stand it. How can you do product marketing if you refuse to encounter your product at all? How do you write anything? And he's like, well, I just get the product manager to write it and I fancy up the language. And she's like, you're dead to me. I love that.
Oh my gosh, she really is your daughter.
She really is. Yeah, she really is. So I've put together this canvas as a way of helping you think about what are the artifacts that you need at various steps along the way. So kind of walking through it, I mean, the discovery portion is really about what problems are there out there that we want to solve. Then there's committing to solve them. What artifacts do we need to show our leadership team, if we have one, or our external finance? What do we need to show them that says, we believe we can make money delivering this thing? Or, maybe it's a business plan, maybe it's a one-page canvas, maybe it's, I don't know, what is it? You tell me, right? Then we describe the problems. What are those artifacts? I use personas and stories. In the old days, we used, requirements. Maybe today we use something else. Then we design and build the solutions and then prepare the organization to deliver the product to market. That means probably a launch plan or a go-to-market plan. And then enable our sales team to connect with the market. The number one reason for lost deals is not price and it's not product. JP knows this. The number one deal is the client was confused and the sales team didn't have any way of addressing the confusion. We have under-supported our sales team with sales enablement. Don't you love, JP, that I'm telling things on your behalf and assuming that you agree with them completely?
You've hit the nail right on the head pretty much every time today, Steve.
Good. Well, it is fascinating. We did a study a few years ago. 80% of salespeople document the loss as a price-related launch because it's the first field in Salesforce in the dropdown. But fewer than 20% of customers made their decision based on price. The most common decision is based on the most common loss is based on confusion. So we've done, in my past, I have done win-loss analysis and learned that the sales team was asked a question that they could not answer, and they didn't have any sales tool that would answer it. And when they tried to get an answer, they couldn't get any sort of answer from support or services or product management. So as you think about, as you take the big thing, we've got an idea, let's go to market, let's start selling some stuff, break it down into the parts. What are the parts that you need to deliver? And as an example, this is what I teach in my class. And I know this is really kind of small, but in discovery, we conduct problem discovery, we isolate problems and personas, and then from that, we create a business canvas or a product vision canvas. Then we create our business deliverables, which is like maybe a business plan or at least a financial forecast. We revise our portfolio roadmap showing how this new thing that we're thinking of, either a new release or a whole new product, fits in with the rest of our products in our portfolio. And then get go-ahead from leadership to say, all right, not only are we on board with this idea, here is the funding to go forward. Then we need to start filling out the details with personas and problems, probably in the form of story. We'll define what our acceptance criteria are. We'll roadmap at the product level, and then we'll engage the technical teams with this information so that they can start designing solutions. And while they're doing that, we'll look at continuously prioritizing their deliverables, formalizing the acceptance process, and then looking for ways in product management to prevent or minimize interference and change. Because it's really hard to multitask, and it's really hard to take be deep into an idea and then set it down and go work on a different idea. So once development starts working on something, the product manager can put up barriers to prevent the developers from being distracted from things that are not relevant. Then we're ready to deliver, and we start, determining our launch activities, developing our readiness plans, prioritizing our deliverables, engaging the go-to-market teams, the salespeople, the customer success teams, the professional services teams, and then while sales and sales engineering engage with the market or connect with the market, we're going to start monitoring the success of the product with success metrics and getting that market feedback and moving it into, guess what, the discovery phase, and we go around and around and around. So that is an example of using the vision canvas and identifying what are the minimum things, not the vision canvas, sorry, the process canvas. What are the minimum set of things that I need, or what are the appropriate level of detail that I need at each of these steps to ensure that we're going to have a successful product in the market? And my friend Mei Wong shared this with me last week. She's a process person, and she came up with this little manifesto to be, and I love it. I want to share it with people. People before process. Don't let the process be draconian, right? Smaller modular processes are better than big processes, which is kind of why we designed Quartz to be extended with those different things, as what I showed you earlier. And processes are meant to be living ideas. We change them as we learn more. Processes facilitate recurring activities across multiple groups. We continually question the validity and effectiveness of our processes, and obsolete processes can and must be removed. And I think that's a really good set of marching orders for us. So as you walk away from this session, think about all the different product activities we're involved in. Somebody has to do all of these things. Where do they fit in the process? And while we're at it, there are a bunch of other frameworks out there. There's Serious and Sequent and Proficient and Pragmatic. Take all of that stuff and stick it into one of these canvases and say, which of these things do we really need, and where do we need them chronologically? And even though I have talked about this in kind of a circle, discover, commit, describe, create, deliver, connect, the reality is you kind of bounce around them. I mean, while you're describing the product idea to development and they start building, you're simultaneously going to be describing the product idea to your delivery team. So don't think of these as serial. Many of them are in parallel. But the idea here is that you can use this canvas to define your standard deliverables for each phase, including connections to other methods. And if this interests you and you'd like to know more, I have written about this in Turn Ideas into Products, my book available on Amazon. Go to turnideasintoproducts.info. It talks about standardizing your defining and delivering of with a focus on technology products, which is my background. It does talk about a role in the organization called Product Ops, which is the standardizing body, the process people for within the product management group. And here's how you can stay in touch with me. My email is steve@under10consulting.com or u10.me. You can get through me through LinkedIn and through Twitter. There's also the link there for the Quartz Open, where you can download the canvas that I was sharing earlier. Way back here, this canvas you can download from Quartz Open. And Hector is no doubt going to tell you that he's also going to share these slides with you shortly. But how am I doing on time here, Hector? Am I like 20 minutes over or 5 minutes over?
I think you're actually on time. We started a little
Okay.
bit late, but you're on time, and we're open at this point for questions. If there's any additional questions or discussion regarding today's topic, and Steve, I just wanted to thank you for a great presentation, and hopefully we'll have now a conversation about how to go about using it and the usability of this for within organizations.
Very good.
With that, let's open up for any questions or any comments regarding today's topic.
And JP, I really appreciate that you let me call on you, speak on your behalf, and then not listen to anything you actually said.
No, I just want to say I'm so glad I attended today's session. I think everything you just presented is a wealth of just great information. And, when you work for a number of different groups, when you not only work in marketing and product development, but you also experience it from the sales side. I mean, like I said, everything you just said resonated in so many different ways. So I think there's tremendous value in what you presented today, and I think it can be leveraged a lot of different ways.
Thank you. Good. Well, and so, next month when you come back, you can tell us about how you implemented some portion of this in your teams. Very good. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you.
Richard, did you want to weigh in on anything?
No, thank you for sharing the Quartz Open information. I do want to look at it a little further. Probably have some questions for you at the next meetup. And what was the name of your book again?
Turn Ideas into Products, available on Amazon.
And maybe you could share the link, the Amazon link to that. Yeah, turn ideas into products.info is the website.
Yeah, I'll paste that here in a second. Here we go. And I put it into the chat stream.
There's the URL.
And if you're on Amazon Prime, no, not Amazon Prime. If you're on Kindle Unlimited, the book is included in your Kindle Unlimited subscription. Tracy, did you have a question?
Yes, I've got this.
She's so sweet. She raised her hand. Did you see that?
The old-fashioned way too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A question brewing in my mind about formalizing learning, because so much learning happens informally, whether in a sales team or so. How can you encourage people to learn and then to share their learnings and institute it bake it into the processes?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure I have a really good answer. What I find in many of the places I go is there's a sense that if we could just take all these things we've learned and put them in this big blob somewhere, this big database in the sky, then we'd be able to share all of our experiences. And I think there's something to that. I mean, in my career, some of the companies I've worked with, when we do customer discovery travel, they won't reimburse us for the travel until we turn in a call report. Here's who I called on. Here's what I learned. And yet, I don't know. I've just completed a series of interviews for an assessment for a company I'm working with. And I have videos of these hour-long conversations. I'm going to go through and listen to those videos now and scribble my notes, but I don't know if there is a way to normalize all of that except to internalize it and then look for opportunities like this where a group of us come together and talk about issues. So it was interesting. I was doing this is a terrible story. For which I will definitely tell. We were doing a national sales meeting, and the product managers were there so that they could do updates on all of their products. and they had blocked off Friday as a golf day. And Thursday afternoon, the VP of sales came to me and said, there's kind of a problem. We didn't book your guys being able to golf. So product management needs to find something else to do tomorrow. So here I am, 6 hours away from having a meeting. Everybody's expecting to wake up for golf, and I've got to come up with something different. And I panicked, and so I ended up doing let's just do an all-day happy hour. But I got a meeting room, and I brought everybody together, and I said, we're going to do a quick meeting here so you guys can go to the pool, but what I'd like to do is just go around the room and talk about your roadmap and your last customer visit. Well, this 4-hour meeting turned into an 8-hour meeting because there were so many stories that so many of the product people wanted to share. And I realized, and I've encountered this throughout my consulting career as well, product people never get together. We're always in support of somebody else. We go to a development meeting, or we go to a sales meeting, or we get called into a marketing meeting because they need somebody who knows something, and yet very rarely do product managers talk to product managers about product methods and product experiences, which is why I've always said, when you're going on a customer visit or doing a Zoom call, you should always have another product manager with you. The things they'll hear are different than the things that you'll hear. So that was a long-winded answer with a little joke in the middle, or a little story in the middle. But the real point is, I don't think there's an automated way to deal with it. I think you write up your notes and you put them on SharePoint, and SharePoint, is Latin for never found again. So, I think we look for opportunities to share our experiences. Which is why, I've always found going on sales calls to be helpful, because I learn a lot after the sales call when we're in the dinner talking about what a disastrous day we had or what a great day we had. But we end up having lots of good conversations over dinner.
Thank you. Great.
It wasn't a good answer, but thank you for appreciating it.
Actually, Steve, I want to extend that. Some of the larger companies, and Google, Apple, even Samsung, they do this. They bring in all their product managers across all of their business units once a year, and they discuss synergies between each other's business units and their portfolios. And these are all just product managers that own the portfolios within different business units. So there's a lot of synergy that comes out of those meetings. Usually there's only once a year. And for larger organizations, it's a whole week of an event. And they plan this ongoing year after year, and they do this like clockwork. And this is how you start seeing, companies like Apple, they bring in all these products that just extend their core products. And these are usual add-ons, and they successfully end up becoming best-selling add-ons to products. And people think that it's just because everybody is clear, and the only reason why there's clarity is because these conversations are happening in the background between all the product managers that own different portfolios within the business.
Very interesting. Yeah, one more in a similar vein. One of my rules for my whole career has been: enemies build documents, friends build products. I'd much rather have a conversation than try to go wandering through SharePoint looking for a relevant document. I'd rather product managers and developers get in a room together and talk instead of, please complete my ticket. It shouldn't be, I'm going to hand off this document to you, but I'm going to have a handshake with you, and we're going to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to say I won I finally gave a good answer to Tracy. All right, Hector, why don't you wrap this thing up?
All right. Well, I'd like to thank all of you, and especially Steve for a great conversation, and your entire audience also for participating today. I want to thank you, and we hope to see you again next year. Our next event is coming up in January of 2022. It's already up, posted on our website. Would love to see you back again next year, and want to wish you a wonderful and a blessed holiday season. Thanks, everyone. Take care.